Rings of Power, aka the Rings of Failure.
I don't know if that fat dwarf chick is any indication. I think it's Rings of Onion.
There you go. All right, guys. So we got that Park Place article linked in the description. By the way, everything that we talked about today, the resources are linked in the description if you want to do your own research on this stuff. But that Park Place has this very interesting kind of breakdown of a recent appearance that the Rings of Power showrunners did, where they basically talk about the fans who are viewing or who are abandoning their show en masse.
Why does the guy on the right look like freaking H.P. Lovecraft screwed Jim Neighbors?
That's exactly what he looks like.
Surprise, surprise, surprise! Like literally.
Yeah. But basically, they were kind of saying that the people who are abandoning the show are toxic, and we don't want them watching, and good for them to like move on instead of like sticking around and criticizing us for stuff that we're writing and ruining Tolkien's little classic. But Amazon came out and they're like, hey guys, guess what? 11 million people watched the premiere of season 2. And so they're touting that as being like a big like win. However, according to Variety and Forbes and Gizmodo and all these other like bastions of journalism, I guess you'd call them, what they're saying is that Amazon has never defined how they count a view. And
it's not unique viewers. It's not. It's number of times it was played. And what do you want to bet? It was like embedded on a bunch of places, right? What do you want to bet?
Well, also the fact that they released 3 episodes at once, they're asking, are you counting all 3 episodes? So it's the same person watching 3 times, multiple times, so like what's interesting is that the season 1 premiere of Rings of Power got 25 million viewers within the first 24 hours that it was released.
Which is closer to like, I'm trying to remember when Walking Dead was hot. Yeah. And when that that was up in the 20 millions and something like that for when those were the first episodes of a season would come out. It was really, really big for a while, I think. So that stands to reason, right? That was, people were actually interested because already you could see there was going to be something bad about it. A lot of people. So even there was kind of a craning your neck on the freeway to watch the car crash kind of vibe for a lot of people. And then some people were like, oh, Lord of the Rings show, I'll give it a shot. And then they watched it.
But what's interesting is that the first season, basically, Hollywood Reporter reported that only 37% of the people who started the season finished the season. Right. So it had like this huge drop in viewership. And we're estimating that carried over into season 2. So there were fewer people interested in season 2. Amazon's saying that's doing really well overseas, but for the American market, it doesn't seem to be doing all that good.
Understand the dialogue, yes.
Hey, I'm really big over in Japan, just so you know.
Yes.
Honestly,
yes.
Yeah, honestly,
we're huge in Sweden. So,
I don't think most English speakers can understand the dialogue in Rings of Power anyway.
True. Or the people who wrote it, yes.
Yeah, but basically, while 40 million viewers in 11 days sounds like a robust turnout, there are plenty of people who are calling shenanigans on Amazon's reporting on this, much like how Disney pulled some shenanigans on the Acolytes premiere numbers and so on and so forth. But I want to...
Marvel? Gosh.
Yeah. So I want to throw this to Tom Connors. Tom, since we're getting a lot of like kind of like industry analysis here from like a bunch of different sources in terms of like the actual viewership, the actual ratings of Rings of Power season 2, and things do not look good. And it sounds like Amazon is just throwing good money after bad on this one because they know that this isn't resonating with people, but they're kind of financially committed to 5 seasons. What's your take on this?
Have they tried lesbian witches?
Oh, that's a winning formula, apparently.
It is.
I mean, at this point, look, are they going to make it any better? No. So they're really just trying to play to the one audience that they can play to. And I think once they hit a certain plateau, they'll probably just pay out and not finish the show. That's my guess, because there's no way it's worth $200-300 million a season. Just not. Plus the money they already sunk into it. So
yeah.
I mean, at what point does it get to where it's cheaper to just dump it?
Yeah, cut bait or whatever. I think what's going on right now is a combination of they can't admit the failure because that looks bad and probably hurts like investors and whatever in Amazon. It would be a giant kind of PR snafu. And then probably there's an element of they probably greenlit like the first several seasons anyways, because that was part of the package deal. Because how could a Lord of the Rings show fail? Right.
Yeah.
That's most likely that's what happened. And I think we heard something about that initially, right? Like it's like 2 or 3 seasons or something. They
committed to, I believe, 50 hours.
5.
Yeah.
It's 5 seasons. Yeah.
Jesus.
But Mr. Fist, I want to ask you about this because it seems like that they were indeed, especially the showrunners of the show, were very much reliant on hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, Tolkien fans, stuff like that, tuning in no matter what. Kind of like how Star Wars fans will just like they see Star Wars on something and they'll be like, "Oh, it's good. I'm going to cry when I watch it." But when it comes to
crying
this,
while we watch it, don't worry about it.
Yeah. When it comes to this, the most criticism that the show has been receiving has been from hardcore Tolkien fans because it just craps all over the canon. So I feel like them like they don't know who they're making this show for. What's your take on it?
I don't think at the end of the day, this was a show that was created at a time when a lot of ESG cash was being thrown around. And I think that played a part in it. So it was automatically going to have the consultants and you remember one of the earliest stories that leaked out about Lord of the Rings of Power was that they were going to have an intimacy coordinator. Remember that? They didn't wind up having sex scenes in the show, but they wanted to. They wanted this to be Game of Thrones, right? And I'm convinced that was the original plan. I think part of the reason Rings of Power is so bad is because of all the adjustments. And we heard some of that actually just ahead of release that they kind of had one plan and they had to veer off in this direction and whatever, right? There was developmental stuff going on behind the scenes. I think that's part of why it was so expensive. I don't think it's because they wanted this big, lavish production. Because have you seen the armor on the elves, for Christ's sake? It looks like a high school production, right? So I don't think you certainly can't see the money on the screen. I think most of it is just production drama. They might have had entire sequences planned and had to scrap them and had to film something else. That quickly stacks up on a show of this sterling quality. So I think that's kind of what happened here is they sort of had one idea and then they went in the other direction. And of course, it being Amazon, this was also, it must be said, this is around the time that a new regime came into Amazon TV. And probably emblematic of this is 2 stories, both of which I'm close to. They were supposed to greenlight an Elric of Melda Benet show. And they said, no, it's too similar to The Witcher. So they killed that. That was originally, they were ready to do
the irony.
Yes. And then the other one was Conan. They were working on Conan. And new lady came in just around the time that Rings of Power was being worked on and put the kibosh on that. I'm sure Tom could talk about that plenty because of his broadcasting partner being the biggest Conan fanboy on planet Earth. But we all know the drama around that. They were supposed to do a Conan, and it was basically like, oh, this is entirely too masculine. We can't greenlight this. We can't do this. And so that wound up getting shit canned.
Yeah, I think that was a Jennifer Salke call, and she's been very much criticized about being a quote unquote star fucker, where basically like she throws around Amazon's money in order to get access to parties and celebrities and people in Hollywood because she likes the cocktail scene.
These freak out parties, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Culture, one of the interesting things about the deal that Amazon has with Rings of Power is that they don't actually have the rights to anything from the Tolkien estate. Like we all thought like, oh, they have the rights to the Silmarillion, or I'd probably mispronouncing that. Silmarillion, thank you.
Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Silmarillion.
Yeah, I am the destroyer of words. But it turns out that they only have access to parts of that, and basically, like for instance, like they can't use hobbits in the show, so they changed it to the Harfoots and stuff like that. So they're kind of working with like one hand tied behind their back because they don't have access to all of Tolkien's lore. But the whole point here was that like, oh, we're going to hire people who are fans of Lord of the Rings, and their love of the material will carry us through like all the stuff that we can't use. But it seems like they just keep changing things left and right, and pissing off actual fans. So what's your take on this culture?
Well, I think the fact that they are limited in the destruction that they can levy, I'm happy about. Letters and appendices are one thing. I do believe that Embracer made a deal with them recently for their portion of the rights, so that they can start to maybe manipulate some of the stuff that they didn't have access to before. But I may be misremembering that from a Midnight's Edge video. Regardless, I don't know why anybody would want to work on this, and I'm not sure they got anybody that actually knew anything about Tolkien to work on this. I mean, if they went looking for fans, what were they fans of? Like something that was like made in Tumblr or something? I mean, what like a Tumblr version of these fans? I don't know. All I know is this: five seasons of this was an enormous mistake, and I actually enjoy every moment that they spend wasting all the money they possibly can on this show that everybody's not going to watch in a year.
Oh yeah, they're creating an entire secondary economy on YouTube of just people who are covering this this raging dog shit fire in real time, episode by episode, and just printing ad revenue money on you. It must be a nice gig. I can't bring myself to do it, but it must be a nice gig. Some people do it extraordinarily well. We know some of them, and they do great jobs. They also look. The fact that this show exists in the first place is fascinating. But the thing that bothers me the most, and I think I always try to bring this to the table, is the fact that every time they try to do something with a property that's well established, that has, very masculine, oriented lore, great stories about family, true heroes' journeys, and all of that, they, instead of going past it to make terrible sequel things, because they watched what Star Wars did and went, wow, we don't want to do that. They go ahead with a prequel. And that's what all of this is. So they can, in advance of everything that was created, they can destroy and sully the lore that followed, the stuff that we love. So they pre-destroy the things that we love, and it's a real issue. I think a lot of people have noticed it. Well, they do, because they get there before, and they want everybody to know. Well, this is not how we got here. We got here because of this story we told, and it's just this hodgepodge of stuff that we have to say because we don't own everything, as Matt just pointed out. So, what I make of it is it's lovely to see them fail. I'm enjoying every second of that. I'm watching them fall off faster than Kamala Harris at a salad eating contest, and I'm enjoying it every single moment. The funniest thing about it all is that they have to compare in an equal number of days and episodes to somehow yield less than half of what the first season did in its premiere. So.